It was supposed to be my quiet escape, a small lake cabin, tucked deep in the woods just outside town. I bought it with the last of my savings after my divorce, needing peace more than anything else. It's the kind of place where you wake up to birds, instead of traffic, where you sip coffee on a porch that overlooks still water, not a concrete street. I never imagined that the very people who were supposed to keep the neighborhood safe would try to rip it out from under me. My name's Rebecca. I'm a single mom, and I live in a modest home not too far from the cabin. I juggle part-time shifts, raising my teenage son, and trying to keep some sort of balance in life. The lake cabin was never a luxury, it was my lifeline. But a few weeks ago, I drove up for a quiet weekend only to find a sold sign hammered into the gravel driveway. My heart nearly stopped. There were strangers inside. Furniture moved. And when I asked what was going on, the woman in yoga pants with iced coffee in her hand smiled like she'd done nothing wrong. "We bought it on Facebook Marketplace," she said casually, flipping her hair. "It was listed by the HOA, except I never listed it." I called the HOA office in disbelief, and what I got in return was a snide lecture about unpaid dues I supposedly owed. Dues I'd already cleared months ago. They claimed they had full authority to liquidate abandoned properties. I tried to show them receipts, proof of payments, even photos from last weekend showing me at the cabin. None of it mattered. They were smug, organized, and clearly hiding something, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I went quiet. I did my research. And what I found made my blood run cold. This wasn't just my cabin. They'd done this to others, too. Elderly folks, veterans, people who couldn't fight back. So I decided to hit back where it hurt. Legally, strategically, and yes, publicly. Because if they thought selling my lake cabin online without my consent was smart, they had no idea what I had planned for their entire neighborhood. And that's when the cops showed up. The flashing blue and red lights cut through the trees before I even heard the sirens. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as the police cruiser rolled into the cabin's dirt driveway, crunching gravel under thick tires. I'd only just arrived back with a box of documents, proof of ownership, bank statements, a notarized letter from my lawyer, but now I had two officers stepping out, one resting a hand on his belt like he was already preparing for a problem. "Ma'am, we got a call about a trespasser on private property," one of them said. Giving my car a long glance before his eyes settled on me, I felt my heart pound. "I'm the owner," I said calmly. "I have papers in the trunk." "She's lying," came a sharp voice from the porch. It was that same woman, the one who claimed to have bought the place through Facebook. She was recording on her phone now, pointing it at me like I was the criminal. She came back to threaten me. She was yelling, "My kids are scared inside." Was a lie. I hadn't even spoken to her yet. I stood still, swallowing the frustration. "I have legal proof. My name's on the deed." This whole sale was illegal, facilitated by the HOA, without my knowledge. The officers exchanged a look, clearly caught in the middle. One of them stepped away to make a call, while the other stayed close, watching me like I might make a sudden move. The Facebook listing had no paper trail back to me, and now, standing there with my own key, I looked like the intruder. Back home that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through Reddit and AIDA threads, searching for stories like mine, and there were plenty. People duped by shady HOA boards, properties taken without notice, legal loopholes buried in confusing documents. I even found a private Facebook group of former HOA victims, some of whom had been forced out of homes they'd lived in for years. It wasn't just about my lake cabin anymore. This was bigger, a network of scams disguised as neighborhood governance. I started pulling county records, HOA filings, anything with a public trace, and that's when I noticed something strange. Half the board members listed weren't even real. One address led to a Lowe's parking lot, another to a Pinterest board for home decor. Something was seriously wrong. I wasn't backing down. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. I spent my nights glued to my laptop, scrolling through county websites, legal databases, and Facebook neighborhood groups. Most of the HOA board members had no digital footprint. No Facebook, no LinkedIn, no records. Except for one, Martin Hale, listed as the HOA president. His name came up in a few local Reddit threads, mostly complaints from frustrated homeowners. People talked about sudden fines, unauthorized landscaping charges, missing payments that somehow ended in foreclosure threats. One person even mentioned their IG being spammed after posting about him publicly. Something didn't sit. Right. I decided to visit the HOA office in person. An old brick building tucked behind a shopping plaza, right between a dry cleaner and a Lowe's near me hardware store. The place looked deserted. The blinds were drawn and the parking lot had only one car. I knocked anyway. After a long pause, a woman opened the door just enough to speak through the gap. "We're closed," she said sharply. "I'm here about my lake cabin," I replied, holding up the stack of papers in my hand. It was sold without my consent. "I need to speak with Martin Hale." The door closed for a few seconds, then opened wider. "Martin isn't here. Then who is?" "I'm just the assistant," she mumbled, stepping aside reluctantly. The office looked more like a storage unit. Boxes were stacked everywhere, and a single desk sat in the back with two mismatched chairs. On the wall was a cheap plastic frame with a document that read Official Property Management Authority in bold letters. But the seal looked off, like it had been copied off Pinterest or made in Microsoft Word. I started asking questions, calmly but firmly. She got nervous, said she didn't know about the cabin, said she only handled paperwork. But when I reached for one of the boxes labeled auctions, she quickly blocked my path. "That's private," she snapped. "You can't go through that." That was all I needed to see. Back in my car, I took down the license plate of the single vehicle parked out back and ran it through a friend who used to work in local records. It was registered to a P.O. box. It's the same one listed under the HOAS. Official contact address. They were covering something up, and they were sloppy about it. But they had no idea that I wasn't done, not even close. It wasn't long before things started getting weird. My front porch light was smashed one night, then a strange white SUV started parking across the street. Engine running for hours while someone sat inside, barely visible behind tinted windows. My son Kyle noticed someone following us after school, same SUV, 2 blocks back. I didn't scare easy, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't rattled. That's when I decided to stop playing defense. I filed an official police report about the illegal sale, attaching all the documents I had. But I didn't stop there. I posted everything I'd uncovered: HOA corruption, the fake board members, the Facebook listing, even screenshots of Martin Hale's shady dealings on a local community forum. The post blew up overnight. Hundreds of comments poured in from people who'd had similar experiences. One woman claimed her mother's home had been reassessed and taken after missing a single payment. Another said her IG account was spammed with fake legal threats after posting about the HOA. A man named Dave sent me a private message with a scanned PDF of internal HOA emails he'd found through a cached Google Drive link. One of them literally said, "If we list 2 more cabins this week, we can finally push that lakefront zoning deal." Zoning deal? I called the county clerk and asked about any recent development filings near the lake. She hesitated, then asked for my name. When I told her, there was a long pause before she whispered, "You didn't hear this from me?" But yes, someone's trying to buy up the entire east side for commercial use. I couldn't breathe for a second. They were selling us out, literally. I started mapping it all out. Every cabin taken, every fine issued, every auction listed on Facebook or Pinterest boards masked as cute real estate finds. Dawn at the center of it all. Martin. Hey. I created a new Reddit thread, laying out every detail. Within hours, it was trending. People were furious. Local reporters started messaging me for interviews. One even showed up outside my house. I told them to give me one more day, because while they were busy watching me, I had one last move. Legal one. Loud, public, and irreversible, they thought. They'd get away with selling my lake cabin. They had no idea I was about to sell their entire neighborhood. Just as I was finalizing everything with my lawyer, planning the big legal blow that would expose the HOA and tank their entire scheme, I got a call from Kyle's school. He hadn't shown up. Panic hit me like a wave. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. My stomach dropped as I raced through every worst-case scenario. I sped across town, checking his usual walking route, gas stations nearby, even a Lowe's parking lot where he liked to grab snacks from the corner store. Nothing. And then my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. Asterisk, asterisk, back off the neighborhood deal, or your son misses dinner. Asterisk, asterisk, I slammed on the brakes. They knew. Someone had been watching me this whole time. This wasn't just about money or fake HOA listings anymore. It had turned into something personal. It's dangerous. I screenshot the message and sent it to the local police, but even they seemed hesitant. The officer I spoke with kept asking me if I had any evidence this was connected to the HOA, as if I hadn't already delivered a pile of documents and digital receipts that night. While pacing around my kitchen, Kyle walked through the door like nothing had happened. Mud on his shoes, backpack half open. I pulled him into a hug so fast, he almost dropped his phone. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from shaking. He looked confused. "I stayed late at Ben's to finish our project. I sent you a message on IG. My blood went cold. I never got it." I grabbed his phone and checked. Sure enough, there it was, a normal message, sent hours ago. But I never received it. Someone had blocked it, or filtered it. I checked my own phone and realized my IG account had been accessed from another device, the same day I posted about Martin Hale and the HOA scam. Someone had hacked into my social media and was watching everything, my plans, my contacts, even my messages with Kyle. This wasn't just a greedy HOA trying to flip a few cabins anymore. This was organized. Someone powerful. Someone who thought they were untouchable. They'd taken homes, threatened families, tampered with online platforms, and now they were watching us. But I wasn't backing down. If they thought that scare tactics would shut me up, they were about to learn the hard way what happens when a mother gets pushed too far. The morning of the town hall meeting, I walked in with a box of files under my arm and a news crew trailing behind me. The small room was packed, angry residents, local reporters, and even a few off-duty cops. Word had spread fast. My Reddit thread had gone viral and Facebook was flooded with reposts of my evidence. Everyone in the room had seen the screenshots, the shady listings, the Pinterest posts of for-sale lake cabins that were never meant to be sold. At the front of the room sat Martin Hale's mug in a blue suit, pretending he wasn't sweating. I took the mic and laid everything out. The fake dues, the illegal auctions, the shell HOA companies registered appeal boxes. I showed emails where he discussed flipping properties under the table, complete with attachments of priority sale lists, my name on top. I even played a voicemail I'd received from a frightened HOA staffer begging me not to say anything. Gasps filled the room, but then came the final piece. A property deed filed just days ago. Martin had purchased 4 homes on the lakefronts using a different name, the buyer listed, a fake LLC registered in Florida, managed by James D. Harlow, which just happened to be the same alias he'd used on Facebook Marketplace. Was over it, or so I thought. As officers stepped forward to detain him, Martin calmly stood up and smiled. "You've all been fooled," he said. "You think she did this for justice? No, she filed the development claim herself 3 days ago." The crowd turned. My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone, heart pounding. Sure enough, there it was. Zoning request filed under my name, claiming I wanted to build a lakeside event venue and shopping center. Attached to the request were forged documents, digitally signed, and submitted online. He'd flipped the story. Thankfully, I was ready. I pulled out the real zoning documents, still unsigned, still unfiled, and then I showed the metadata. Fake requests had been submitted using an IP traced to the HOA office's router. The Lowe's parking lot address sealed the final nail in the coffin. Martin's smirk vanished as officers closed in. He was done. But as they let him out, he turned and said, "This neighborhood was never yours anyway." And that's when I realized there was someone else behind this, someone bigger. And this war wasn't over. In the weeks that followed, everything unraveled faster than anyone expected. With Martin Hale in custody, investigators uncovered layers of fraud spanning years, dozens of fake property listings, shady wire transfers, offshore accounts tied to abandoned HOA bank records. Several board members resigned overnight. Some vanished entirely. The county froze all HOA-controlled assets, and a temporary management company was brought in to stabilize things. My lake cabin was officially returned to me. The deed was corrected. The fraudulent sale nullified, and the people who had briefly moved in disappeared without a word. I walked back inside that tiny wooden home one rainy afternoon, dusty, quiet, untouched since the mess began. I stood there in silence, soaking in the view through the foggy window that overlooked the water. It was mine again. And this time no one was taking it. Kyle and I got back to something like normal. The strange SUV stopped showing up, and I changed every password, shut down my old IG, and even made a backup drive of everything I'd uncovered, just in case. The Facebook group I joined turned into something bigger too, grew into a movement. People across the country started sharing their own HOA horror stories. some worse than mine. We called it HOA stories, short for quiet anger, a place for homeowners to speak out without fear. Reporters kept calling. One story made the front page of a local paper with the headline *HOA, Nightmare Ends with Surprise Hero Mom. It was surreal, but I stayed grounded. I didn't do it for fame. I did it because someone had to stand up when no one else would. As for that final thing Martin said about someone bigger being behind it, Ty never found out who it was. The fake LLCs, the Pinterest listings, the Lowe's address. Maybe it was all just a web of his own making. Or maybe there really was someone else pulling strings from the shadows. If there was, they went quiet fast. I learned something through all of this. Sometimes the systems we trust the most, neighborhood boards, even Facebook or IG listings, can be easily abused when no one's watching. But if you dig deep, stay sharp, and refuse to back down, truth has a funny way of finding daylight. The lake's calm again. For the first time in a long while, so am I.